Plasma blasts sizzled past Dylan Turner's head as he dove for cover behind the rusted hull of a crashed starship. The human explorer and xenoanthropologist had stumbled into the middle of a savage battle between two warring Tak-Tak clans on the remote planet Xyloth. Through the smoke and chaos, Dylan glimpsed a shocking sight. The reptilian aliens were praying fervently to crude totems and effigies bearing human faces. As casualties mounted and their position grew dire, the Tak-Tak warriors clasped their talons around tattered flags, depicting stylized human visages. They rocked back and forth, hissing guttural chants and garbled invocations to the skyborn gods. Plasma bombs exploded around the aliens, but they only redoubled their prayers, their voices rising in desperate pleas for divine intervention. Dylan activated his suit's stealth field and crept closer, documenting the bizarre ritual with his helmet cameras. His anthropologist's mind raced with burning questions. Why in the nine hells would a spacefaring species pray to humans as if they were war gods? What calamitous event or misunderstanding could have spawned such a fervent belief? The battle reached a bloody crescendo as one Tak-Tak clan finally shattered the other's lines. The victors raised their largest graven image of a human high overhead, bellowing a raucous war chant. Their imposing leader, a scarred brute Dylan later learned was named Zephyr, praised the Divine Ones for delivering them triumph over their hated foes. Suddenly, a keen-eyed Tak-Tak caught a shimmer of Dylan's stealthed form and let out a piercing shriek. It jabbed a trembling claw in the human's direction. Zephyr whipped around and locked eyes with Dylan across the corpse-strewn battlefield. The alien warlord's slitted pupils blew wide with an unsettling mixture of awe, reverent terror, and religious ecstasy. The gods walk among us!" Zephyr shouted in halting, sibilant Terran standard. As the Tak-Tak warband closed in around Dylan, primitive, superstitious wonder, and the glint of blades in their eyes, the human explorer realized the gravity of his situation. His next move could reshape the destiny of both their species, for good or ill. Dylan knew he had to unravel the secret history behind this strange alien custom. Because if the truth got out, if the other spacefaring races learned of the Tak-Tak's human idolatry, it could ignite a galaxy-spanning holy war with Earth trapped at its center. The fate of humanity itself hung in the balance. Dylan's mind reeled as Zephyr led him and Zira from the archives, the Tak-Tak leader barking orders to his warriors. The once bustling streets of Kurzak lay empty, the only sounds the distant thunder of Zygak's bombardment and the clatter of Tak-Tak claws on stone as the aliens rushed to defensive positions. Holographic effigies of humans flickered and danced in the eerie silence, their stylized faces seeming to watch Dylan with inscrutable expressions. Zephyr ushered them into a fortified bunker deep beneath the city, where the Tak-Tak High Council awaited, their shimmering robes dulled by dust and fear. "The Sky God must guide us," one elder rasped, his slitted eyes fixed on Dylan. "He must wield the divine weapons and fulfill the prophecy." "I'm not a god," Dylan protested, his voice echoing in the confined space. "I'm just a man, an explorer. I don't have any divine weapons." Zyra placed a slender claw on his arm, her touch gentle yet insistent. "But the archives, the God King's tomb, there must be truth to the legends. Why else would the Zygaks fear your coming?" Dylan shook his head, frustration and confusion warring within him. The rational part of his mind rejected the idea of ancient humans uplifting alien species, of mythical god kings and forgotten wars. Yet the evidence was mounting, the pieces falling into a pattern he could no longer ignore. The bunker shuddered as a Zygak shell impacted nearby, raining dust and debris from the ceiling. Zephyr snarled, his talons flexing. "We have no time for doubts. The Divine One must act, or all is lost." Dylan looked around at the faces of the Tak-Tak, seeing the desperate hope and utter faith shining in their eyes. In that moment, he made a decision. Whether or not he truly was some prophesied savior, these beings believed in him. And if there was even a chance that the ancient weapons of the God King existed, he had to try. "All right," he said, squaring his shoulders. "Take me to the armory. If these divine weapons are real, that's where they'll be." Zyra trilled in relief, her scales shimmering with renewed energy. She led Dylan and Zephyr through winding corridors, deeper and deeper into the bedrock of Xyloth. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber, its walls lined with alcoves containing strange devices and artifacts. In the center of the room, on a raised dais, rested a single crystalline sarcophagus, an exact twin of the one that had held the ancient human bones. Dylan approached the sarcophagus, his heart pounding. Zyra translated the inscriptions etched into its surface. Here lies the armor of the God King, to be donned by his reincarnation in the hour of greatest need. With trembling hands, Dylan pressed the glowing runes. The sarcophagus opened with a hiss, revealing a suit of armor unlike anything he had ever seen. Gleaming silver plates shone with an inner light, while unknown alloys and advanced circuitry hinted at incredible power. Gingerly, reverently, Dylan lifted the helmet from its resting place. The armor seemed to reshape itself as he donned each piece, conforming perfectly to his body. As he locked the final clasp and lowered the helmet over his head, a surge of energy coursed through him, ancient systems coming to life with a rising hum. The armor's HUD flickered on, displaying schematics and status readouts in an achingly familiar script. Ancient Terran code, not seen for millennia. Zephyr and the other Tok dropped to their knees as Dylan stepped down from the dais, the armor's ethereal glow casting shifting shadows on the chamber walls. Zyra looked up at him, awe and vindication shining in her eyes. "The God King rises again," she whispered. And in that moment, Dylan knew what he had to do. He had to embrace this role, to become the symbol of hope and deliverance the Tok so desperately needed. He had to lead them against the Zygax, to protect this world and unravel the deepening mystery of humanity's forgotten past. The armor's systems hummed with ancient power as Dylan strode out of the bunker, Zephyr and Zyra flanking him. The streets of Kurzak, once empty, now teemed with Tok warriors rallying to their living god. Dylan's HUD highlighted tactical information, mapping out weak points in the advancing Zygax lines. "We make our stand here," Dylan announced, his voice amplified by the armor's speakers. He pointed to a series of elevated platforms overlooking the city's main thoroughfare. "Zephyr, position your sharpshooters there. Zyra, I need you to coordinate our defenses from the central command hub." As the Tok scrambled to obey, the first wave of Zygax attackers breached the city's outer defenses. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, but Dylan's armor shrugged them off like raindrops. He raised his arm, feeling the surge of energy as the suit's weapon systems came online. "For Xyloth!" Dylan shouted, unleashing a barrage of energy pulses that tore through the Zygax front line. The Tok roared in response, their own weapons joining the fray. The battle raged for hours, a brutal dance of advance and retreat. Dylan's enhanced speed and strength turned the tide again and again, his armor's capabilities allowing him to be everywhere at once. He leapt impossible distances, smashing through Zygax battle mechs and deflecting incoming fire with precise force field projections. "Dylan!" Zyra's voice crackled over the comms. "I've identified a weakness in the Zygax command ship's shields. If you can hit these coordinates with a concentrated burst, we might be able to cripple their entire fleet." The HUD displayed the target information, and Dylan's lips curved into a grim smile. He activated his armor's flight systems, rocketing skyward as Tok plasma cannons provided covering fire. Dodging through a hail of Zygax interceptor fire, Dylan reached the optimal firing position. "Initiating power surge," he muttered, feeling the armor draw energy from its core. A lance of pure white light erupted from his gauntlets, striking the Zygax ship at precisely the right spot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash, the massive vessel's shields collapsed. Zephyr's voice boomed across the battlefield. "The Sky God strikes down our enemies. Charge, my brothers. Show no mercy." As the Tok pressed their advantage, a new threat emerged. A massive Zygax dropship descended through the clouds, its hull overflowing with weapons. The ship's ventral hatch opened, and a towering figure leapt to the ground, the impact cratering the stone beneath its feet. "I am Admiral Corax," the Zygax warlord's voice boomed, amplified by his own fearsome battle armor. Your blasphemy ends here, human. Face me in single combat if you dare. Let your pitiful gods save you now. Dylan landed before Korax, the two armored figures facing each other amid the chaos of battle. He knew he had no choice. The Tok-Tok's faith in him, their very survival, hinged on this moment. I accept your challenge, Dylan replied, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. The two warriors clashed beneath the shattered dome of the Tok-Tok's holiest temple, their blows shaking the very foundations of the ancient structure. Korax was a blur of motion, his strength and speed easily matching Dylan's enhanced capabilities. For every strike Dylan landed, Korax countered with brutal efficiency. As they fought, Dylan's mind raced, searching for an advantage. Suddenly, Zyra's words from earlier echoed in his memory, a weakness in Zygak's armor, detailed in the ancient texts. His eyes darted over Korax's form, searching for the telltale sign. There, a slight gap in the plating near the lower back, exposed for just a fraction of a second as Korax wound up for a crushing blow. Dylan's armor reacted instantly to his thoughts, charging the pulse cannon in his gauntlet. As Korax's fist came crashing down, Dylan twisted, narrowly avoiding the strike. In the same fluid motion, he pressed his hand against the Zygak's warlord's vulnerable spot and fired. The pulse cannon discharged with a thunderous crack, and Korax stumbled backward, his armor sparking and sputtering. The mighty Zygax fell to one knee, defeat etched in every line of his posture. A deafening cheer erupted from the watching Tok-Tok. The remaining Zygax forces, seeing their leader fallen, began a hasty retreat. Victory belonged to Xyloth, to the Tok-Tok, and to their human god. As the dust settled, Dylan found himself surrounded by adoring Tok-Tok, their reverence palpable. Zephyr approached, dropping to one knee. The prophecy is fulfilled, he intoned. The God King has returned to lead us to glory. Dylan opened his mouth to protest, to explain once again that he was just a man, but the words died in his throat as he saw the hope shining in their eyes. He realized that for better or worse, he had become a symbol, one that these people desperately needed. In the days that followed, as the Tok-Tok began rebuilding their shattered city, word of Dylan's victory spread like wildfire. New temples rose in his honor, and pilgrims flocked to Xyloth from across the sector. Dylan did his best to guide the Tok-Tok, teaching them to use and maintain the ancient human technology while trying to instill a sense of self-reliance. But as more humans arrived on Xyloth, drawn by rumors of godhood and ancient power, Dylan saw a troubling shift. Many of his fellow humans embraced the Tok-Tok's worship, donning armor like his own and setting themselves up as a new pantheon of deities. The once egalitarian Tok-Tok society began to stratify, with human god kings at the top of a rigid hierarchy. Dylan watched these developments with growing unease, torn between his desire to protect the Tok-Tok and his duty to the truth. As he stood atop the highest spire of the newly rebuilt Kurzak, looking out over the changed landscape of Xyloth, a communication alert flashed in his armor's HUD. Incoming transmission from Galactic Council Headquarters, Planet Ether, the system announced. Priority, urgent. Dylan's stomach clenched. He knew this day would come, the day when he would have to answer for the changes he had wrought, not just on Xyloth, but potentially across the galaxy. As he accepted the transmission, he steeled himself for the greatest challenge yet, navigating the treacherous waters of galactic politics while protecting the people who now saw him as their savior. Dylan accepted the transmission, bracing himself for the inevitable confrontation. Chancellor Zorvik's holographic visage materialized before him, the alien's compound eyes narrowing with terrifying fury. Explorer Dylan, Zorvik's voice crackled with static and disdain. You will present yourself immediately before the Galactic Council to answer for your actions on Xyloth. Chancellor, I can explain. Silence! Zorvik's mandibles clicked in agitation. Your explanations can wait. A council transport is en route to your location. Be ready to depart within the hour. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Dylan alone with his thoughts and the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He gazed out over the sprawling cityscape of Kurzak, watching the Tok-Toks scurry about their daily lives, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing above. Hours later, Dylan found himself standing before the imposing Galactic Council chamber on Ether. The circular room towered above him, its walls adorned with the flags and insignias of 100 worlds. Chancellor Zorvik sat at the center of a raised dais, flanked by a diverse array of alien counselors. "Explorer Dylan," Zorvik's voice boomed through the chamber, "you stand accused of wielding forbidden technology, usurping power over the Tok-Tok civilization, and propagating a heretical cult. How do you answer these charges?" Dylan stepped forward, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "Counselors, there has been a grave misunderstanding. I never intended for the Tok-Tok to worship me. My goal was to learn from their ancient texts, to uncover the truth about humanity's past." Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. Zorvik leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering. "And yet you donned the armor of their so-called God King. You led them into battle against the Zygax. How do you explain these actions?" Before Dylan could respond, a piercing alarm shattered the tense atmosphere. Holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber, showing a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace above Xyloth. "The Zygric Empire," a counselor gasped. "They're launching a full-scale invasion." Dylan's blood ran cold as he watched plasma bombardments rain down on Xyloth's cities. Without hesitation, he turned to Zorvik. "Chancellor, I need a ship. Now." "Absolutely not," Zorvik sputtered. "You will remain here to face—" Dylan cut him off, his voice ringing with authority. "With all due respect, Chancellor, there are millions of lives at stake. You can put me on trial later, but right now, I'm the only one who can save Xyloth." For a tense moment, Zorvik seemed ready to refuse. Then, with a resigned click of his mandibles, he nodded. "Very well, but know this, human. When this crisis is over, you will answer for everything." Minutes later, Dylan's commandeered vessel dropped out of hyperspace above Xyloth. The planet's atmosphere was choked with smoke, its cities ablaze under the relentless Zygric assault. As he piloted the ship through a hail of plasma fire, Dylan's mind raced, formulating a plan. He set the ship down in a hidden ravine on the outskirts of Kurzak, praying his arrival had gone unnoticed. As he emerged from the vessel, a familiar voice called out from the shadows. "About time you showed up, Sky God." Zephyr materialized from the gloom, his scales dulled with dust and scored by plasma burns. Beside him stood Zira, her usual grace replaced by a battle-ready tension. "What's the situation?" Dylan asked, falling into step beside them as they hurried through the war-torn landscape. Zira's voice was grim. "The Zygric fleet appeared without warning. They claimed to be here to eradicate the false gods, meaning you and any humans on Xyloth. But there's more." They ducked into a partially collapsed building where a makeshift command center had been established. Holographic displays showed the movements of Zygric forces and pockets of Tok-Tok resistance. Zephyr gestured to one of the screens. "They're being aided by human renegades, led by this man." The display zoomed in on a figure clad in armor similar to Dylan's, but crackling with arcs of electricity. The man's face was contorted in a manic grin as he directed Zygric troops. "Gordon Blake," Dylan breathed, recognizing the ex-council operative. "He's calling himself the God King of Thunder now." Zira nodded. He arrived with the Zygric fleet, claiming to be the true incarnation of the sky gods. Many Tok-Tok were swayed by his power. Dylan's mind raced, piecing together a plan. "We need to find an edge, something to turn the tide. Zephyr, Zira, can you coordinate guerrilla strikes against Blake's forces? Keep them off balance while I search the ruins of Kurzak. There might be something in the ancient archives that can help us." As Zephyr and Zira set to work, Dylan ventured into the heart of the ravaged city. The once grand halls of knowledge lay in ruins, but amid the debris, he found what he was looking for: star maps detailing the path taken by humanity's ancestors. Following the maps as guidance, Dylan discovered a hidden bunker deep beneath the city. As he entered, lights flickered to life, revealing banks of ancient technology. A holographic figure materialized before him. An alien AI, its form shifting and flowing like liquid metal. DNA match confirmed, the AI intoned. Welcome, terraformer. Dylan's breath caught in his throat. What are you? What is this place? The AI's voice resonated with the weight of eons. I am the last remnant of the Terraformer project. My purpose is to seed worlds with the building blocks of life, to nurture the growth of new civilizations in humanity's image. Images flashed before Dylan's eyes, a vast human empire spanning the galaxy, shaping the course of evolution on countless worlds. He saw the rise and mysterious fall of this cosmic dominion, leaving only scattered remnants like the Tok behind. Your armor, the AI continued, it is compatible with my systems. I can provide you with the means to defeat your enemies and protect this world. A tendril of light extended from the AI, connecting with Dylan's armor. He felt a surge of power as new data flooded his systems, including a potent virus designed to infiltrate and override advanced technology. Use this wisely, terraformer, the AI warned. The fate of many worlds rests in your hands. Armed with this new knowledge, Dylan raced back to the surface. The battle for Xyloth's future was about to reach its climax, and he now held the key to victory, or to unleashing in power beyond imagining. Dylan's mind reeled as the AI's revelations crashed over him. The weight of humanity's lost galactic empire pressed down on his shoulders, but there was no time to process the implications. A priority alert flashed across his HUD. Gordon Blake had accessed the AI's data trove. Zephyr, Zyra, Dylan barked into his comm. Blake's stolen critical information. We need to mobilize now. As he raced back to the surface, Chancellor Zorvik's hologram materialized before him. Explorer Dylan, you are hereby ordered to stand down and... Dylan cut the transmission mid-sentence. He'd deal with the political fallout later. Right now, stopping Blake was all that mattered. He emerged from the ruins to find Zephyr and Zyra coordinating a ragtag group of Tok warriors. The aliens' eyes widened as Dylan approached, their postures shifting to reverence. The prophecy speaks true, Zephyr intoned. Our God King returns in our hour of need. Dylan opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat. He thought of Blake, of the power he now wielded. With a deep breath, Dylan made his choice. Zephyr, I need your warriors, all of them. Will you follow me into battle? The Tok's scales rippled with excitement. To the ends of the universe, my lord. Then gather your crusaders, Dylan commanded. We leave within the hour. As the Tok scrambled to prepare, Zyra approached Dylan, her eyes narrowed. You're embracing their worship now? Dylan's heart made. It's a means to an end. We need their strength to stop Blake. Zyra nodded, her expression unreadable. I hope you know what you're doing. Hours later, Dylan stood on the bridge of a Tok warship, staring out at the unfamiliar starfield. The ancient maps had led them to an uncharted world, a desolate rock orbiting a dying sun. But the sensors told a different story, teeming with artificial life signatures and energy readings off the charts. My lord, a Tok officer called out, we're detecting a massive structure on the planet's surface. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a towering citadel of black metal and pulsing energy. Even from orbit, Dylan could see the writhing forms of Blake's creations swarming around its base. Crusaders of Xyloth, Dylan's voice rang out across the fleet. The false god awaits us below. Today we fight not just for our world, but for the future of the cosmos itself. To battle. The Tok ships plunged into the atmosphere, plasma cannons blazing. On the ground, nightmarish creatures of twisted flesh and metal surged to meet them. Dylan led the charge, his armor's systems pushed to their limits as he carved a path through the horde. Zephyr fought at his side, the Tok warrior's scales gleaming with retrofitted human tech. My lord, he shouted over the din of battle. The Citadel's defenses are too strong. We cannot breach them. Dylan's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then he saw it, a narrow maintenance shaft, barely visible amidst the chaos. Zephyr, I need a diversion. Can you draw their fire? The Tok-Tok's mandibles clicked in perseverance. "It shall be done, Sky God." As Zephyr led a suicidal charge against the Citadel's main gates, Dylan slipped into the maintenance shaft. He crawled through cramped tunnels, his armor scraping against corroded metal. Finally, he emerged into a vast chamber filled with pulsing biomechanical equipment. "I've been expecting you, Dylan," Blake's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Come to witness the dawn of a new era?" The rogue operative stepped into view, his armor crackling with eldritch energy. Behind him, a familiar hologram flickered, the Terraformer AI, its code now twisted and corrupted. "It's over, Blake," Dylan growled. "You have no idea what you're messing with." Blake's laughter sent chills down Dylan's spine. "Oh, but I do. The power to reshape worlds, to birth new civilizations in our image. And now, it's all mine." With a gesture, Blake unleashed a wave of monstrous creations. Dylan fought desperately, but he was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Just as all seemed lost, a deafening explosion rocked the chamber. Zephyr burst through the wall, leading a squad of Tok-Tok warriors. "For Xyloth!" the alien bellowed, buying Dylan precious seconds. In that moment of chaos, Dylan saw his chance. He lunged for the AI's control terminal, linking his armor directly to its systems. Immediately, he felt the crush of near-infinite data flooding his mind. "DNA match confirmed," the AI's voice rang out. "Initializing Prime Directive protocols." Blake's eyes widened in horror. "No! What have you done?" But it was too late. The AI's subroutines activated, spiraling deeper into forbidden knowledge. Dylan screamed as ancient, terrifying truths seared themselves into his consciousness. And in the depths of that cosmic horror, he glimpsed something else, a presence vast and malevolent, straining against the bonds of reality. As Dylan's body began to change, merging with the AI and the very fabric of the planet itself, he heard Zyra's voice crackling over the comms. "Dylan, the Tok-Tok scriptures speak of this, an entity called the Hellwell. It's what the AI was created to contain." With the last vestiges of his humanity, Dylan made his choice. He plunged deeper into the AI's code, forcing it to recognize his will. The chamber filled with blinding light as a wave of forced evolution swept across the planet. Blake and his followers twisted into impossible shapes, their screams fading into the roar of perpetual transformation. Dylan felt his consciousness expanding, becoming one with the mutating world around him. From orbit, Zyra watched in awe and terror as the planet's surface writhed with new life. The being that was once Dylan reached out to her mind, conveying truths too vast for words. As the Tok-Tok fleet prepared to depart, Zyra knew her journey was just beginning. She would carry Dylan's story to the stars, a warning and a promise of what awaited those who sought to harness the power of the gods. But even as she set course for distant worlds, Zyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. For in the depths of Dylan's new consciousness, something ancient and hungry stirred, waiting for its chance to break free.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.